Here we go again. More MAGA civil war. This time, Marjorie Taylor Greene taking on Donald Trump, not on Israel or the war, but on tariffs and betraying American, not just manufacturers, but farmers and ranchers. And it's not just Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's also other right-wingers you wouldn't expect going against Donald Trump on this issue. So John has the whole story for us.
You might say MAGA's got beef with each other.
Oh, what?
But you probably shouldn't, that's not good enough. But anyway, let's jump into what's actually going on. So this morning, Trump bleated out on Truth Social, "Today I concluded a deal to substantially lower the price of ground beef for working American families. As everyone knows, under President Biden, beef prices soared at their fastest rate, and the American beef herd fell to its smallest size in modern history. As we work to rebuild this herd and help our ranchers, for the next 90 days, the US will allow up to 300,000 metric tons of product for ground beef to be imported with no out-of-quota tariff. We have a commitment that this beef will be sold at 25% below current market prices. This deal will reduce prices for Americans while giving space for our great American beef herd to grow again. Thank you for the attention to the matter." Okay, so there's some claims there. Some of that might be true. Some of it is objectively not true. For instance, the American beef herd has reached historic lows under, right now, it's Trump. He's the president right now, Biden's not the president. I know that there's this quantum state thing going on where if something's good in the rare cases, Trump gets credit, but if it's bad, Biden was president a minute and a half ago. It's not true, it's the worst it is right now. The prices of food are bad right now, inflation is bad right now. That's the situation he finds himself in. And so he's gonna try to bring in some foreign beef or whatever to get the price down because the price is objectively pretty high. He says he has a commitment that the beef will be sold at 25% below current market prices. Sounds like communist price fixing to me, but he doesn't have a problem with it for some reason. In any event, the US started this year with the smallest herd since the 1950s, about 86.2 million cattle and calves. We can talk if we have time about why the herd has been trending down for 70 years. I don't think the right wants to talk about that, but we can. In any event, the cattle shortage has driven consumer beef prices to record highs, with ground beef selling for $6.89 a pound on average in July. That is up 10% from a year ago when Biden wasn't president, I'll remind you. So, what is the issue with this? Well, we're gonna get into all the criticism. It's coming from a variety of different sources. So you have Republican senators like Tim Shea, who claims that Trump's maneuver is going to benefit the meat packers rather than the cattle ranchers. And that shouldn't really be disputable. Like, Trump should be focusing on the fact that theoretically this benefits consumers. Why this would in particular benefit the herders makes no sense. It's a total lie. But Tim Sheehy is right that it will almost certainly benefit the meat packers right now. He says, "I've advised President Trump against this course of action for a year because American ranchers have been struggling against the packer monopoly for decades, and this will further harm them, most of whom are MAGA Republicans. The president's heart is in the right place on wanting lower prices for the American people, and beef prices have been impacted by the Mexican screwworm. But the reality is this action will make it more difficult for American ranchers to rebuild our herd and bring prices down for the American people. And most importantly, this will harm our ranching families who feed the nation." So that's on the Senate side. On the House side, former Representative Thomas Massie said, "What a slap in the face to American cattlemen and consumers, worse than socialism. Dumping foreign beef in US markets can temporarily lower prices, but it won't incentivize American farmers to raise more beef." Tommy Lawrence said, "If this is the plan, the very least that can be done is mandatory country of origin labeling so consumers know where the beef they're buying is coming from. Importing a bunch of foreign beef is just a giant gift to the meat packers, who then get to undercut our American ranchers who cannot differentiate their product from the cheap foreign crap. The American cattleman is being driven out of business so the land can be gobbled up for data centers and other bull crap." Look, I'm happy for any right winger who's gotten on board with the fight against the data centers and everything. I don't like, there's the weird xenophobic thing of the foreign crab beef. Is it necessarily worse? I don't think that necessarily follows, but it is obviously going to drive down the prices, and that does mean it's gonna drive down the prices for the American cattle ranchers who sell it as well. They're not wrong about all of that. So we have more we can get to Marjorie eventually, but what do you make of this, Jake?
Yeah, two things I want to clarify. First, I don't get this whole thing about we're gonna let the herd grow again. How would lower prices incentivize farmers to grow their herd, they'd make even less for their herd. So it seems the exact opposite of what the market forces would create. So I don't know if they're bothering to explain it or have an excuse for why this would be affected the exact opposite of how a market would normally be affected, or if they're just like, I don't know, just throw it in there. So, and it'll make, the 2/3 of MAGA that's left go, yeah, that's right, that's why we grow the cows that way. Because there's more bull crap that Trump just put out, and then that'll fertilize the soil, and then that'll get you more cattle. By the way, that might be their best argument. Okay, so no, it won't grow the herd. It might even shrink the herd more. So now, number two is, Tomi Lahren new to the Trump critique, right? So she hasn't been part of the Marjorie Taylor Greene breakaway republic of, F Trumpistan. So good to have Tomi Lahren on this team on this issue for now, right? Doesn't mean you have to agree with her on everything. She's agreeing with us.
And on the data centers.
That's where I'm going with this. So first, I'm happy to have a new right winger on our side, at least on one issue. And it shows the weakness of Trump. Otherwise, she would never do this.
Totally, yeah.
Right. But the second part is that, hey, her talking points are one of them doesn't make sense to me, but the other one's great on the data centers, right? And that goes to show you what we were talking about yesterday on the show, which is the Republicans sent a memo to their own donors, which is hilarious. May we please beseech you to have permission to be against data centers slightly. Otherwise, we're all going to lose. We're going off a cliff as we speak, right? And they're like, and we won't be able to help you manipulate the American people and rob them blind if we don't exist. Please, pretty please, can we have an exemption to criticize data centers? So that was an amazing memo by the Republicans. And it shows you who's in charge. So that's now bleeding over to their pundits. Oh, data centers, we care. Of course, we care about data centers. Oh, they're charging you extra. Oh, that makes me so mad. Yet we got caught. We have to pretend to be against it
until the election,
right? But hey, I'll take it. Good data centers that charge you more if your electric bill, etc. It's an absolute crime. It's a literal robbery. So if we've got momentum against that, that's wonderful. Look, we talk about rigged systems on this show every single day. Medicare is one of them. Not because the coverage doesn't matter, it matters a lot. We like Medicare, but because a lot of the people helping you pick a plan get paid more when they steer you towards certain plans. That's the whole game they're playing, and nobody tells you. That's why we work with Chapter, independent Medicare advisors. Honest because their incentives are honest. Their job is finding the right plan for you, not pushing whichever plan pays them the most. They compare every Medicare plan nationwide. And here's what independence actually looks like. If you're already on the best plan for you, they tell you that right away and hang up the phone. No upsell. But people who switch to Chapter have saved on average $1,100 on healthcare costs. And that's every year. That's real money, a lot of money. Chapter is free, it takes under 20 minutes, and it might be the one call this year where somebody's actually on your side. So call 805-201-2275. That's 805-201-2275. Now back to the part that I'm with you on. This is not important, right? But okay, you have to label between foreign beef and US beef. Good, I like labeling. Yeah, we progressives like labeling, more information, more transparency, and so you get to know what you're buying. When I go abroad, sometimes there'll be these big signs saying, don't worry, no US beef used. So the signs might be counterproductive in some contexts. By the way, if you're wondering why, do I hate US beef and want the cattlemen to do poorly? No. I'm weirdly and over the top patriotic, and so I want our cattlemen to be the best cattlemen.
You've eaten a burger or two in your time.
Yeah, believe me, I have. I'm not like a vegan like Tallarico. I'm kidding. That's the latest. They're calling him vegan and gay. Based on nothing. He's on tape eating barbecue or whatever. Anyways, so I'm a well-known beef eater. I eat.
Second only to Jin, he's the beef eater.
Yeah,
here,
I will stand a post for decades on end without moving on things like money and politics. Okay, anyways, bottom line is we test less for our beef. It's not the cattleman's fault, but it is the industry that says. Remember during mad cow disease, we covered this a long time ago. They would literally stand the cows up that couldn't stand because of mad cow disease and pushed them through the line. And the regulators were like, good enough. Why? Because they work for the industry, right? So that's why a lot of the world was like, no US beef, because we have no regulations to protect our own consumers, because that got deregulated by the Republicans earlier.
Okay. Now they're using that same strategy in Mitch McConnell. Stand him up, push him through. Anyway.
Okay. So yes, but overall, hey, people coming to our side. Trump is wrong. I'll take it. Who else do you have?
Yeah, let's get to Marjorie Greene. I also just mentioned, like, again, we don't have a lot of time, but one of the reasons it's been hard to grow the herd of the last decades is increasing drought. And do I need to explain why America is facing more and more drought over the years? Maybe it's something the right has refused to acknowledge is happening. Something to look into. In any event,
it might rhyme with climate change.
Maybe. Is that pig Latin? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, so Marjorie Greene got fired up about something posted by Gunther Eagleman.
Is that a real name?
I think he is actually a real person. I don't think he's one of the bots. He just sounds like a Russian bot. Anyway, and then tweets like a Russian bot. So he says, Trump just delivered for working families. He cut a deal to flood the market with cheaper ground beef, up to 300,000 metric tons coming in with no out of quota tariff for the next 90 days, sold at 25% below current prices. Notice how Trump says we've gotten assurances they will do it. Then by the time it hits the right-wing grifters online, it's just a fact that that's what it's being sold at. So we'll see. Anyway, under Biden, beef prices exploded and the American herd hit its smallest size in modern history. Again, that's not true, but he just repeats it without fact checking. Trump is fixing both, lower prices at the store and giving our ranchers room to rebuild the herd. Although, as you say, there's a big logical gap there, but whatever. This is what actual leadership looks like. Prices down, Americans first. Thank you, President Trump. And in his defense, the meat packer monopoly is composed of some Americans, I guess, rich ones, well-connected, politically donating Americans. So he's not 100% wrong. Anyway, to that, Marjorie Greene says, here is the paid slop about how the Trump admin is making it even harder for American beef ranchers and producers. Now they will be undercut by foreign imported beef, as they have been hit financially with high cost of fertilizer and diesel from Trump's war with Iran. The Trump admin's attempt to lower the cost of beef is American beef last and foreign beef first. So she's not wrong about the fertilizer thing. That is definitely a thing that's more and more affecting food prices. I don't know like how big of a part of it's been over the past year, because the problem with beef predates the war in Iran by a good bit, but she's not wrong. It's definitely a part of it. There's a lot of things that go into this. And look, honestly, I don't know how strong of an opinion you have on this. I think that we have competing interests. We want the American ranchers, I guess, to do better. But we also want Americans to be able to buy food. Like, we have to balance a bunch of interests. I don't know the answer to this necessarily, but it is, I guess, good that there's at least a debate going on the right.
Yeah, so I'm mixed on it too. And I think that the answer is in the details that we don't have. So if I was in the White House, I would say, hey, listen, how much do we have to import to lower prices, but still keep our own industry healthy? And so the answer might be, hey, you know what? We need to import 7% more or 52% more. And here's how it affects the ranchers and why and how we can protect them, right? But here's how we bring the prices down. And maybe there isn't a perfect balancing act, but I would do that analysis first and let that analysis drive it so that we can achieve the objectives we want for the American people, right?
Yeah.
But that's not how Washington functions. So they almost never have that conversation. To be fair, sometimes in Democratic circles, they'll have that conversation. Whether they use it to then effectuate policy is a different question, right? But instead, how it goes is, okay, which donor's complaining? The meat packers? Okay, all right, we got to help the meat packers. What are we doing for the meat packers? Oh, the imported beef, are they donors? No, they can't be, but they're giving to there, and then that's a donor. Okay, and how about the other side, the farmers? Yeah, a bunch of suckers, they'll vote for us anyway. We're not gonna lose any of their votes. Okay, let's go, let's do it. They're not doing an analysis of what's gonna help you, they're doing an analysis of what's gonna help them.
Yeah, 100%.
Right?
Yeah.
But the good news is that right-wing media and et cetera is getting the anger bubbling up from their own side. It's not like they're being like good guys and they did the analysis, right?
Yeah.
They're actually looking at their own audiences going, I'm sick of this, I hate this, and they're reflecting that. That's another positive.
Well, and they're able to, because there's something like for every point in polling Trump goes down, the right can debate what he's doing 10% more, I feel like. Like if he was above 40%, there'd be no debate. But as he drops down to 33, 32, they can actually debate it, which I think is good. And by the way, look, he should have a room of experts. I know that that's probably not a thing they've done even once in this term, but I agree they should get all the experts in a room. I can't answer. I know barely more about American beef than Darlene Graham does about Taiwan. But my guess would be that if there is a very strong meatpacking monopoly here, that's probably hurting the beef herders a lot. Like maybe break the monopoly, maybe that would be a thing. Because this is like Trump looking at, how do I just briefly make things look a little bit better to get people off my back, rather than why don't we question the status quo and question whether it's a good thing that we have a monopoly in this area. But that's bigger thinking, and again, it would force him to go against his donors, which he would literally never do.
Yeah. All right, now the last word goes to our members. I like these, that's why I'm reading them. Michael Zembauer on TYT.com says, he said meat packers. Michael, you made me laugh. So I read a YouTube members. Jim Huggett confirms this relevant information. Gunther Eagleman is real, guys. Okay, so apparently that's a real person. And then Jim Huggett wrote in, why do I want Arby's now? Now that's the most American thing that's been said. Hey, you know what, guys? You watch the show live and you're a member, you get rewarded. From now on, new policy out of nowhere, out of the blue, okay? But blue makes sense, because if I read your comment during a segment, $100 Blue Apron gift card.
Dang.
Okay, but you got to be a member. So watch the show live, comment. Be a member and you're gonna get that. So all three of you write in at rewards@tyt.com and we'll be able to prove that you're a member because you're in the member section, right?
Yeah. And
pick up your $100 Blue Apron gift card, okay?
Damn, now it's uncapped? I'm gonna have to send a message.
There you go, okay. You guys feed us messages, we feed you back. Hey, you could even get American beef with that Blue Apron gift card, so there you go.
Or it might be French crap.
Yeah,
put it in Tommy Lara.
We don't want that. Get the frog stuff out of here, okay? America's for beef and cow and cattle. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.